There he goes again. Shows his face, just peeks in the door, runs away with his creepy eyes.
Bye, York. I miss you.
I don't. So, that picture I sent you earlier, or the group with the one-on-one Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books. Did you see those?
I did not. What are they?
I had to go digging to even find out what these things are.
Okay.
Because I had never heard of them. A local store around here had 3 of them for sale, and they were asking $40 a piece, which is good bit more than they're actually worth. I even hopped on eBay just to get a value and see how many are out there, and there's not a lot of these things around. Um, so apparently, these books, they're called one-on-one adventure books. They were written by Jim Ward,
Mm-hmm.
who we talk about all the time, whether it's on the podcast or just in our own group chatting about. But
Right.
apparently they put out 5 box sets of these things in the late mid 80s, and they're not all Dungeons and Dragons. They were actually put out by TSR.
Okay.
One of them apparently is a space adventure. A couple of them are Marvel comics because TSR used to do the Marvel role playing game back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But one of them is like Daredevil versus Kingpin. The other one's Fantastic Four versus Doctor Doom.
Oh,
And then
cool.
yeah, I know, right? And the ones I sent were Dragon Sword of Lankamar, which is Dungeons and Dragons, and the Challenge of Druid's Grove. Uh,
Okay.
and what it is, it's just these little books, and you buy the box set. There would be 2 books in it, and they're just these paperback books, a little bigger than a standard paperback book today, but a lot thinner. So maybe 120 pages or so, I'd guess.
Okay.
And you and one other person would play this thing, and it's actually a game. It's a combination of the choose your own adventure books and Dungeons and Dragons. Each player had a character, you had stats, you could pick spells, and
Huh.
then one person would read off a portion of it from what I was understanding, and then you would have to do things. You could decide which character goes which way. Maybe the wizard would be better at dealing with traps, so you send him this way, while the druid might be better at talking to animals, so you send them this way. And it didn't have any dice. You would actually, if you had to figure things out, you would just sort of randomly blurt out a number. I guess 1 to 100 or 1 to 20. I don't know what the chart is specifically. And
Mm-hmm.
then you would look it up in the chart to sort of figure out what the effect was, what happened, and how much damage something would take.
Okay. That's
But
weird.
yeah, it's I had never seen these. These are I love it. It's just very light introduction to role playing, and honestly, I would love to see things like this nowadays.
I mean, like the choose your own adventure books.
Choose your own adventure, but adding in the stats for characters, adding in other methods for figuring out tasks, things like that. Choose your own adventure is very straightforward. You go left or you go right. One direction kills you, the other doesn't. But in
Right.
this scenario, maybe it kills you, maybe it doesn't, because you have options depending on and you could include dice or whatever if it was done today. These old ones didn't, but it still had methods for figuring out what happens.
Right. It's funny you should bring that up because right now on the Storytelling Collective, which they used to be the RPG Writer Workshop,
Yep.
there is a course they just added called Choice Design and Solo Game Books,
Oh, perfect.
and it's done by an author. Um, I'm going to murder her name. Sursa Victory, I think.
Okay,
Um,
that is quite a name. Spell it,
yeah,
or
Sursa
whatever.
Victory. Um, she's written a bunch of basically choose your own adventure books, but she's also basically written a bunch of books kind of similar to the way you wanted,
Mhm.
where like you have you roll and make choices and stuff like that as you go through the adventure book.
Yeah.
So if you go to the storytellingcollective.com, you'll see there it's like the big course they're pushing right now. You can do them. It's 5 lessons to basically write the whole, um, to basically how to write the whole book. I guess this author is editor in chief at the Trident Game Books, which publishes pick a path fantasy adventure stories.
Oh, okay.
And so she kind of took that and put a D&D spin on it. So
Yeah, like I've noticed the choose your own adventures have started to make a comeback, and yeah,
yeah,
in the '80s it was a thing, and then it went away for 30 some odd years, and maybe it'll stick around for a little while and disappear again. Who knows? But I was a fan of these things growing up. I know a lot of other people were too.
yep,
I actually picked up a choose your own uh, adventure board game recently that I got it for Christmas, played it a couple times, and it's kind of neat. You know, you and the
that's
other
cool.
players have to sort of agree on which direction to go, and then you die a lot and start over,
Yep,
as happens in these games. But yeah, I just came across this stuff today and thought it would be
yeah.
interesting. I can't help myself, but now I'm just looking at them and I want to order all of them.
Order all of them. Do it. You
Order
won't do
all
it.
of them. You're
You,
absolutely right. I won't do it. One of them I found was $510.
you won't do it.
That you're damn right I won't. uh, the most of them are about $35 though. It looks like.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That works. So I I had a very long weekend.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
bet you did. But hey, the your stream, it was kicking. There was people there watching.
yeah, and it's over forever. It's done
Yep.
until next week.
Yeah. And well, is your player taking over next week?
Yeah, I my player Mike, who's DM once in a while in the past, is taking over. He's running all of Mines of Fendelver, um, as his first time ever running a campaign.
Okay.
Um, and there's so much stuff out there too. Like all the maps are done like 5 times over with.
Oh yeah.
If you go to like our Mines of Fendelver, I don't know if it's the just the initials of it or if it's the whole thing, but on Reddit, but like you can find every single map in any kind of detail and quality and art style that you want. And so all the stuff is just it's out there in spades. So it's easy to get all the stuff together. And he said he's already assembled everything he needs to run the campaign already into Foundry. We just need to get on and play it.
Nice.
So I don't know if he's prepared for this or not.
Yeah, it's one thing to run a D&D game, it's a whole other animal to try to run it on stream.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's going to be too much of a difference, because we're just running it. He's just running it normally.
Y-
I'm going to be running the stream from my side.
Yeah,
Normally
I'm
I
aware
DM
of
and
it.
I run the stream stuff on my side. But like when I got back into D&D by being a player in Lost Mines of Fendelver because
Mhm.
my DM friend wanted to run it, and that's the cool picture that I've shown off to everybody with like that I had Adam Shumpert draw for us.
Yeah.
That was
Yep.
that group, and we did things that were so off book to get through
Eh,
there.
eh.
Like there's a good probably like the whole middle point of that book. I have no idea what like really happens in the middle of it. Like I know the beginning's pretty much the same. You go and you get ambushed by goblins on the road,
Right.
and
You
then you
fight
go to
some
the goblin
goblins. You
cave. You
fight
fight a
some
bugbear
wolves.
as the
Yep.
big boss. That's been the opening story since third edition.
Right.
Um, but the like when we got into town, like when we learned that the bandit incursion was kind of going on there, like the first thing we did is rally the town to go murder all the bandits themselves.
Right. Why do it yourself when you can include NPCs who are not actually a thing in the book?
Right. So we burned down the tavern that they were basically had their base out of. So there's a huge deviation of the story there. Um,
Wait. You burned down the town's tavern
no, no,
to.
no. We rallied the town to burn down their own tavern.
Oh, okay. Were the goblins in the tavern?
The bandits,
The
yeah,
bandits.
that
Sorry, the
was their
bandits.
that was their home base.
Oh, okay. Okay.
At least,
Yeah, I
yeah,
had this weird idea, weird notion that you had created an event to sort of piss them off to get them to go round up the bandits. Burn down the tavern. Oh, town can't get booze now. Now they're going to really be up in arms to go hunt down these bandits.
No, like I guess the bandits were there. I don't know if that's going to change at all in the new one. I honestly don't know because like I pitched the idea to the bard, and the bard was like, "Hell yeah, I can do that." And then so Stevie Nicks started going out and started rallying the troops for like 4 hours.
DV Nix, okay.
Yeah.
Let me guess, you were playing Paladin.
I was playing Victor, the half elf that looked human and then didn't acknowledge his elven roots. Sorcerer.
Okay.
Yep.
I find that hard to believe. You playing a sorcerer at all?
I was playing a sorcerer. And then I know this is not part of Fandelver, but there was basically we found a ancient dungeon that had like these 5 levels, and at the very bottom was a gnome studying what looked to be a book made out of human flesh. So
Necronomicon.
So I immediately I roll on the table like an intelligence check just for myself, and I go, that guy's a demon. And so I look at the DM. I'm like, what kind of check do you want to make to see if I feel like that guy's a demon? And he's like, insight, and I rolled like a 20, and I was like, he's like, yeah, you think that guy something's definitely up with him because he's a gnome. And he's here with no food. That was a locked door. And he's reading a book made of human flesh. You think he's definitely shady, maybe a demon something or something greater. I was like, yeah. And we didn't fight him there. We convinced him.
I would have just figured he's a cleric, he's got summoned food and water. He could live here forever. He's just reading a book, light novel. Nothing to worry about.
We had somehow convinced him to come up to the surface because there was somebody that wanted to fight him and kill him, and that was true. And he was like, "Okay, I'll go handle it." So he went up with us, and the 2 NPCs started to fight. And the best part was I could tell that we were pissing off the DM because we kept basically like egging these 2 on to fight each other.
You're not gonna take that from him, are you? You're not gonna take that. Oh, he said something terrible about your mother. Yep.
And then he decides to kind of like neutralize the conversation, and he casts Hold Monster on the demon. Okay.
Okay.
The second Hold Monster hit, I said, "Who's up next in initiative?" He goes, "Oh, you are." I was like, "Okay, cool." I run over to the demon, and I cast Chromatic Orb Acid in his face.
Okay.
He's like, "What?" I was like, "That's what I do. That's, I think, 3rd level or something like that." He's like, "Okay." Rolled a hit, and I rolled with advantage, and I hit. And he's like, "Okay."
He'll take half if it's acid, but
the demon?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the type, I think.
Oh, yeah, it does not demon. Not most demons. That's why I picked acid.
Okay.
Didn't pick fire for a reason.
Well, yeah, obviously.
He's like, "All right, how much damage is that?" I was like, "That's like 8d8 or whatever it was because it was a crit."
Yeah.
So I rolled all the damage, and I one-shot the demon. And then,
in gnome, in the demon in gnome form.
Yeah. And then he was like, "Well, okay, that's a thing." And then the other NPC took the Necronomicon, and then I missed the next session. And so he basically said, "Yeah, you stay behind with the guy who's kind of looking at the Necronomicon," and they went off to basically go fight some Banshee at a well. I'm like, "Okay, cool." Just to kind of catch you up with what I'm doing that time, because he let me have that like out of game RP session. He's like, "I'm gonna wait till that guy's asleep, and I'm gonna cast Chromatic Orb Acid in his face." He's like, "What? Why?" I was like, "No reason." And so we do it, and we kind of roleplay it out like through Facebook, and like, okay, he's asleep, he's helpless, he's dead. Okay, I have the Necronomicon. Okay, I'm gonna start studying the crap out of that thing.
Of course.
Hide the evidence of the body and everything. And he's like, "You're definitely like evil now." And I was like, "Oh yeah."
You want deadites because that's how you get deadites.
And he regretted it from there. So that's basically I found an old god. I got into contact with the old god, and basically now was a warlock sorcerer, essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and then we completed the campaign, and the campaign ended with us um, finding like the thing at the end. And I know this is a different ending than what's in the book, but we found the actual well and actually had power left in it. And so I siphoned all the power out into the Necronomicon to summon my old god to the surface, and basically stayed behind, became his avatar while the old god was let free from his prison as he started to destroy most of the Sword Coast.
Yeah, it's definitely sounds like you went off book a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, almost to the extent of your Icewind Dale game.
yeah, pretty much. And
So
so
I certainly hope that your player slash DM is ready for that kind of nonsense because that's probably what's going to happen.
I am playing a lawful evil character this time.
Oh my god.
um, uh, I am playing a hexblade warlock who is a black dragon or black dragonborn.
Yeah.
Um, and I was able to go with the hexblade, and I asked him if I could use, instead of picking like whatever the hexblades normally picks, if I could use Tiamat as my deity for the power, and he's like, yeah, sure. So I went out there and I grabbed critical roles, uh, the commandments of Tiamat, because they're really these really nice, cool commandments of Tiamat.
Okay.
And essentially, they're like basically like, you want to hoard wealth. If someone's too weak to have something, you should take it from them.
See,
Um,
that's that's not lawful evil though. Like Tiamat is chaotic evil, if I recall
yeah,
correctly.
but
Lawful evil would much rather be the people in charge. Like our government is what I would consider lawful evil.
I
Yeah, that's lawful evil. Those people who want to they don't steal wealth so much as manipulate the laws to get your wealth.
well, that's the other part too. Is the other aspect of Tiamat was that all the other deities are inherently tyrannical,
Mhm.
and thus that whole system needs to fall. And I just figured I was just going to follow the Tiamat teachings to a T. That's why I went with lawful evil.
Yeah, but
And I
everything you just described is chaotic evil.
yeah, but it's lawful for me. It's kind of like a lawful good paladin just going kind of lawful stupid in a way. I'm kind of lawful evil stupid.
Well,
Um,
okay then.
but I'm not going to go like all murder hobery and stuff like that. That's not this character's point.
Mhm.
This character's point is basically to serve himself.
Yeah.
And I've already got the good backstory for everything going, and I'm going to be very interested to see what happens. I think one of our other characters is very greedy as well, so we'll see how that works. And then we have my wife's character is actually, Brand's Bronzebeard from World of Warcraft.
Nope.
He's basically just a dwarf that goes out on adventures all the time and unlocks ancient civilizations, and that belongs in a museum kind of
Oh
fella.
wait, was he was the Indiana Jones one that you met in I remember him having a rifle or something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
essentially, she basically took that character, and that's her grandmother, and she's going off, and she's being a steel defender artificer, so she can
Okay.
have a musket and run around and have cool adventures with
Yeah,
everybody.
you want to find ancient artifacts and former civilizations, things like that.
Yeah. My other thought was to play because this may be the only time I'll ever get to play it. To play an Italian dude that is the spectral hands monk.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The I don't I don't think it's called Spectral Hands, but I know the one you're talking
No,
about. The monk,
astral self.
yeah, Astral Self, the one that has all the extra arms that you can fight
Yeah,
with.
and I'll just name. that my stand and just go run around and just pretend I'm a show character. I, but I decided to keep it somewhat serious, and that's why I went with the warlock. Um, the other idea is to play some kind of like druid that shapeshifts into animals, and like I'm just always a snake.
Yep. That's what everybody I know who plays a druid. That's what they do. They just shapeshift constantly into other things.
I'm done. Just be snakes.
Just snakes.
Just snakes.
Play a Yanti, then that's all you could shapeshift into is snakes.
I'm going to be a human. Um,
You're gonna be
from
James.
the
You'll be James Earl Jones from Conan. Your name is Khazad Doom, and you use a bow and arrow with snakes as arrows, and that's it.
no, I was going to say I was going to be a human druid from New Waterdeep. Used to be the French Quarter, but now it's just kind of like a party town, But I'm from the real part of that area, so my name is Bayou Billy.
Bayou Billy. Good. Wasn't that? I think that was an '80s video game, wasn't it?
It was. It was.
Bayou Billy. Yeah, that was from the yeah, that was an old Nintendo game, The Adventures of Bayou Billy.
So that's unfortunately the problem I'm running into is like all these classes that I want to play are like just like these dumb absurd classes that I see everyone else get to play and have fun with. It's like I want to have fun with that too. I want to be a hexblade and have one spell a day.
Yeah, I mean
Can I have a
that's
short rest?
a warlock for you. I get so few spells, but hey, I've got Eldritch Blast. The
I
warlock.
don't.
Yeah, I know.
Don't
Because
have Eldritch
you're
Blast.
you're intentionally not taking it, which is I have actually played a warlock who didn't do Eldritch Blast, and let me tell you, it's the worst thing ever. It is not
Um.
fun. There's nothing you can do. It's not
Well,
good.
I'm a hexblade, so I'm supposed to get in there in melee and hit things with my longsword.
Yeah,
My longsword, because I'll be using green flame blade, will basically do the one. I'm gonna be using it two handed, so I'll be doing 1d10 plus 4, which is technically more than Eldritch Blast, at least at this level.
mhm.
Um, and Green Flame Blade will bounce off for 4 damage elsewhere. And that scales up. Um, I have my Acid Breath, which I have
Well,
two uses of.
that's right, because they fixed the breath
They
weapons. They're,
fixed,
they're
they
yeah,
fixed
they're
them.
actually not bad now. The old one was
Yeah.
horrible.
I did pick up Mind Sliver instead of Eldritch Blast as like the range spell
What
for me.
the hell's that even do?
Um, it does 1d6 damage. Okay,
Psychic, right?
it's psychic damage. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
So
I remember this spell.
essentially it's 1d6. It's an intelligence saving throw.
Yep.
Um, so I don't have to worry about disadvantage or anything as long as I can see them. Um, and the range is 60 feet. And then when they take the psychic damage, they subtract 1d4 from their next saving throw that makes before the end of the turn. So I can pretty much basically just cast Mind Sliver, and then um, if they haven't done anything, I can just breathe on them, and now my chances of my breath hitting them is better.
Can you breathe as a bonus action?
No, it'll be next, but it's by the end of my next turn.
Oh, by the end of
So
your next turn. Okay, I don't think that's what you said, but all right. Yeah, that works. All right.
yeah,
I mean, Mind Sliver is, eh, it,
it's something different than just Eldritch Blast.
yeah. I mean,
I will pick it up
play
later.
people use Eldritch Blast as a warlock because it's just straight up the best thing you can do as a warlock. It's not necessarily the most interesting. I I like to describe warlocks as just the ranger of the spellcasting class.
Yeah,
Like you're boring. You don't do anything. You're literally just shooting things. It's just like being a ranger with a bow.
yeah. I thought about taking lightning lure instead.
Yeah,
So I can just pull people to me and then hit them.
yeah.
But
That's what a lot of them. If you're doing the hex blade, a lot of them will do that.
it's only 15 feet.
Yeah, but sometimes that's all you need. Run in 30 and then pull them. 15.
Yeah. Or Magic Stone.
Magic Stone. I mean, there's some decent spells that I think you could get access to at, yeah, as far as cantrips go. I mean, Firebolt's always a choice. People just do the Eldritch Blast because of the force damage and the push and pull of it.
No, Fire Blast isn't on my list.
Firebolt, I think. If
Yeah, it's Fire. Frostbite is. Firebolt is not.
okay, Frostbite's not bad.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's the
Keeps
one
them
that
from getting
prevents them
away.
from healing, isn't it? I don't.
No,
No,
disadvantage on the next
that's
weapon
Ray of.
attack.
Sorry, that's Ray of Frost. I don't have
Yeah.
the book in front of me to look at, so
I thought about doing Poison Spray because since I'm a Black Dragon,
it's
you
terrible.
know, but it's the worst spell ever.
Yes, it does good damage if they don't make that. I think at the con save.
Yeah,
Yeah, when con save is like everybody's highest save.
yeah. Which is why I didn't take Lightning, not Lightning Lure, but the other one, Frostbite, because Frostbite's also con save.
Right.
Mind Sliver's at least intellect,
Yes. Yeah,
so that
Mind Sliver's
most
going to
things.
work on a lot of things. On Beast, it's going to work out nearly every time.
Yeah, and then I have Shield and Hellish Rebuke because why not?
Yeah, those are give me's.
Especially if I can Mind Sliver them and they run over there and hit me.
But don't you have silvery barbs?
No, I don't because I'm not a jerk.
I thought everybody takes silvery barbs.
I don't think I can actually.
It's probably not a warlock spell. I haven't looked, but
Witch Bolt. That's about it.
yeah, Witch Bolt's another one. I always wanted to like Witch Bolt, but it's it doesn't do enough, and it's like it's I don't know. I've never felt like it was strong enough
Yeah,
by comparison to Flame Bolt or Fire Bolt, whatever it's called. By comparison to Eldritch Blast, it just falls short.
yeah. I really wish there was a spell casting class that didn't have access to the um like damaging spells
Mhm.
and just had access to like the um maybe some of the control but not all of the control spells, but mostly had access to all the support spells. And like had them be like, like a make a paladin, like a hexblade kind of variant where like they're using intelligence or something as like their melee modifier, and then like be able to use spells like comprehend language and like cause fear, distort value, all like the really cool like situational utility spells.
Mhm.
Like they could do all those cool spells because like there are a lot of really cool spells. I can pick two as a warlock, you know, and then
Yeah.
if I'm a mage, cool. I have a list of all the spells. I can cast most of them as a ritual and whatnot. But you know, you never pick those as a mage unless you somehow get them, through other means during the campaign. So I kind of wish there was almost like a thief class or something along those lines that was like an arcane trickster rogue that specialized in like prestidigitation and illusion spells and no offensive spells because everyone's just so focused on damage
Yeah.
and not the other side of playing a role playing game that all these cool spells just kind of go to the wayside.
Yeah, they do. It is a change sort of in the direction of Dungeons and Dragons. Uh, we've talked a lot about the balance of things nowadays. They don't release a lot of extra spells because certain spells are very unbalanced, as Silvery Barbs, Shield. So they're very, very cautious, I think, about releasing spells.
Yeah.
Uh, you still can play something like that without any problem at all. So the campaign that I played in, where we went up to level 30, started at level 1 all the way up to 30. I played a sorcerer. It started in 3rd edition or 3.5, and as soon as I was able to prestige class, which is like your archetype nowadays, I went as a shadow sorcerer. Shadow sorcerer had bonuses to illusion, necromancy, and anything shadow based, but they had negatives on evocation. So
Yeah.
it wasn't worth it for me to take evocation spells. So I took, I just had a massive amount of illusion and enchantment spells. Yeah, that's what it was. It was illusion, enchantment, and necromancy is what I got bonuses to. So
Yeah.
when we swapped that game to 5th edition, I stuck with that. It wasn't that I had no evocation spells, but it was a very small amount. And the vast majority of the spells I had were enchantment or things of that nature. I didn't even have a lot of necromancy because there's just not a lot of necromantic spells really. Uh,
Yeah.
when it came to damage, now mind you, by this point I'm like 20th level or so. There's a few good high end uh, intellect spells that aren't evocation. I think they're enchanting. I don't have the books here in front of me, like I said, but uh, yeah, on the similar was similar to Mind Sliver, just at the higher levels.
Yeah.
So that's what I took for damage. But most of the stuff I was casting was either uh, Dimension Door or just things to sort of control the battlefield. Slow was a big one that I liked. It's
Yeah.
definitely it's definitely doable. You just but there's nothing in 5e because nothing has drawbacks, so they don't want to give anything too many bonuses in the process because then it unbalances things.
Right.
They need to add drawbacks in. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I take something, then I should lose something, but I should get a slightly more benefit for taking it than for what I lose.
Which is fair. I mean, that's an advanced way of playing, and so because 5e is just so accessible, it's hard to remember everything that you can do, let alone the negatives that are stacked on top of that.
Yeah, but it's literally like Dungeon Dragons since the beginning has been that. It's only very recently, like in the last 2 years, where they've sort of started doing away with all of that. Like even now, the new kobolds that are coming out, they have no drawbacks. The fact that a kobold can now have an 18 strength is just ridiculous to me. I mean, it doesn't
But
make
he's
sense.
super strong.
Yeah, and he's a foot and a half.
He's super strong, and he lifts, and he goes to the gym, and he drinks the Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah,
protein shake.
yeah. He drinks whey protein. He eats his greens and chicken. Yeah, no, it makes no sense at all. Yeah, whether it be class, whether it be the races in the game, you need the benefits and the negatives to it. It's very important. Only having benefits just sort of it really dilutes things. It kills creativity.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I kind of like it on one hand, but I also it makes things a lot easier than having to deal with all the negatives as well too. An additional thing to remember, you know.
Yeah,
But then
but
again, being online, all that stuff is there, so it
yeah,
shouldn't be that hard to have those negatives in and just basically be done with it all.
Yeah, but if you can't trust people who are capable of reading and understanding Dungeons and Dragons books to be able to subtract 2 points from a stat to add 2 points to another stat, we're in way bigger, problems than this. Like,
Well, I mean, I don't, but
yeah,
that's for different reasons.
yeah. Point being, I think people who are capable of playing Dungeons and Dragons can add and subtract just fine. Yeah, having a few negatives, having a
I've
drawback here and there,
I've
it's
played enough dungeons. I played enough Adventure League to realize that that's not true.
Yeah, but Adventure League tends to be the very beginning. Yeah, it really is. Like a lot of Adventures League people are not going to understand the game because they have never touched the game, or if they have, it's very, very gently as a player when they show up 2 times ever to play Adventures League. Yeah, the consistent players will start to pick this stuff up rather quickly. It's not a super complicated game, especially with 5th edition.
What are you talking about? Of course, it's super complicated. I gotta remember strength.
Yeah, you have to remember roll the d20, roll the d8, add 3 or 4 or whatever to it. What's your armor class? Okay, the DM's going to tell you if you got hit. Now subtract this much from your health bar. Holy shit, that's so complicated.
You'd be surprised. Speaking of Adventures League, actually, um, I we had two full tables this last session, I ran Frostmated again, and the other table is running Fandelver. I mean, like a new player, so I had them go over to Fandelver table, and I still had freaking like 9 people on mine.
Jeez.
3, 5, 7. I had 7 people on mine.
Okay, seven's manageable. It's a lot, but it's
I,
manageable.
I still don't like it. I don't like
No,
anything more
no.
than 5. No.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can handle 6 okay, but 5 is really the perfect number.
Yeah. So there was. They decided basically to hoof it from Brinchandir to Targos, and one of the players bought an axe beak.
Okay.
So they jumped on their axe beak, which moves at like 45, I think, or 40,
Hmm.
and players move at 30.
Right.
She's like, I'm not waiting for them. I'm headed straight to Targos. And I was like, okay, this is going to happen now.
Yep.
I had already rolled during their morning hours, I think that they were, that they were going to get a random encounter. And I rolled on the random encounter table, and it was a Praeton, like the
Oh,
hippogriff.
yeah, the Paraton.
Paraton.
I think that's how
Yeah.
it's pronounced.
It's like the night elf hippogriff from World of Warcraft, essentially.
Yep.
It's a bird with like hooved back legs and
Yeah. I think they're.
claws and
I remember right. They're
horns.
highly intelligent, though.
They are highly intelligent,
Yeah.
and as I read for the first time when I was reading this character stat block, they like to eat elven hearts. So
Yeah.
this elven player was on the back of an axe beak, and a Paraton attacked her. And I let one of the other players who wants to be a DM take over this battle one-on-one. She was nervous, but she did a fantastic job. And it ended exactly how you would expect it to end.
The low-level player dying to the CR2 or 3 monster.
Yes, it ate its heart.
Yeah. Well.
And AO's ways of coming back. This is a hardcover book, so I can modify things however I see fit to some degree.
Hmm.
But they did a fantastic job. So I kind of hope that this player eventually soon will start DMing for other people. But her concern, and is the same concern another player had, and we were actually talking about it some today, where it was, I just don't know D&D well enough, so I need to study D&D.
Yeah.
And I was like, study D&D? You don't study D&D. You just play it more.
Yeah.
And that got me really thinking. It's like, you really? There's a lot of stuff that happens in Dungeons and Dragons. There's so many things out there. And as you were just complaining, they've simplified the crap out of 5th edition. So now there's no more negative things for choosing other things. There's no more extra things to remember. So a lot of times you just get there and you play a bunch of games. You learn what each of the stats do. You learn how skills kind of work with stats to kind of be things. You get to understanding that, hey, if I need to understand magic, I need to be smart. If I want to lift that boulder, I better be a strong kobold and drink the Arnold Schwarzenegger whey protein with cherries and schnapps. And eventually I'll get stronger and stronger. And, I was like, so when you finish playing that character, you play another character. And
Yep.
then you just you sit behind the DM screen, and now you basically just be a DM, because there's nothing to prepare you for it. There's no way you can predict what the players are going to do.
Yep.
Okay. So you can't plan ahead. You can just say, okay, this is the monster they're going to fight, and just approach it that simply. They're going to fight this thing. And what they do is what they do. You just got to say what the appropriate checks are, which you should have possibly learned from being your player. And once you know that, like, hey, I think this guy's lying to me, and that's an insight check, you're good to go. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly think that's the point in time where you're good to go and you can become a DM. Now, players will always question you, like, why can't I do this instead? I know I'm doing a backflip onto a moving horse from the top of a barn, but why can't I use my pawn to land softly?
It
Because
is
it's an acrobatics check, my man.
it's that fine line that every dang it, that every DM sort of has to learn of what to allow and what not to allow, because
Yeah.
you do want your players to be able to get creative with
Hmm.
things. You absolutely want them to be able to get creative, but you don't want them to try to get so creative that it's game breaking or just ridiculous. Like, it needs to be feasible. Like I
Yeah.
the old adage of trying to seduce the dragon.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You never want that level of ridiculousness in your D&D game. But to persuade a dragon, you need to allow stuff like that.
Yeah. We almost had the situation too where one of the guys had the secret from Icewind Dale where he has a long lost love somewhere in Icewind Dale,
Oh
and
yeah.
he can choose at any point in time who his lost love would be. And they were in Bryn Shandir, and then they had the priestess from the Temple of the Morning Lord.
Mhm.
If you remember her, she's like the real hard ass, like that hates everyone talking about the other guy that's called the Morning Lord.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember.
Yeah, he's like,
My players dealt with them.
it's like I'm gonna make her my long lost love, and I was like, are you sure about that? Are you the one that made her to the priesthood?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Eventually, he recanted. But like the other thing too is you got to control your players. Um, I had another guy that was like, "Hey, I want to talk to this person, and while this person's going on, I want to also investigate this thing that's happening over there, and I also want to do an insight check on them." I'm sorry, what? You can do one of those
Yeah,
things.
one or the other, buddy. One or the other.
He's like, "Well, I can't just talk to them while I investigate this thing." Is like, no. Sherlock Holmes doesn't talk to people while he's investigating. He rambles, but he's not talking to people.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
if he might be talking to them, but I'm just going to make that an insight check.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the investigation. It's going to be one or the other. You're not getting both.
Yeah. Right. So you only get both. So as a DM, you have to learn that fine line, but you can't learn that fine line until someone does it to you
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
fourth time.
Yeah. I know 2 or 3 podcasts ago we spent a good bit of time talking about how to become a DM, but
Yeah.
the simplest truth of it is you have to you need to play, and then you need to just do it, and preferably do it with a group that you're good with. Bringing in people out from outside doesn't always go so well. But if it's friends of yours and people that you're really familiar with, or hell, family. I mean, I know of some people who started dungeon mastering by having their mom and their brother and sister sit down and just play with them.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many ways to get in it, but you just need to sort of learn the basic rules and then do it, and you'll
Yeah.
learn
Like
along the way.
you can't study your way into learning how to be a DM. You can't study your way into learning D&D. Like you can't memorize all the spells in the spell book. I mean, I guess you can,
Jacob
but
did.
I mean, I mean, you can. There are players who do. I play with two players who know the freaking rule book like
Yeah.
it's their job.
Yep.
And I'm glad they do because then that way I can go like, hey, um, what's this skill? I can't remember what has this, and then they're like, oh, that's the intercept fighting style from this book on page this. I was like,
Yeah.
did you look that up or is that from your head? Because I don't believe you. I don't like you anymore. Like, how do you know all that stuff? And like, you can't know. And just like you have to have those people will exist and they will always come like, hey, I don't think that spell works this way. Well, you're the DM. A lot of times you can just go, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Or you can basically just run with it. It's like, well, we'll do it this way for right now. And that player, assuming they're, worth their salt, will go, okay, and just move right on.
If
I
they
had that
don't,
happen.
if
I
they
had that
don't,
happen.
yeah, if they don't with that, if it's a rule you can't find and you just say we'll do it this way for now, you're the DM, man. That's
Yeah.
final. That is final. If the player is not good with that, you probably need to find another player.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this maybe last week, or maybe I mentioned it to you offhand, but like there was the players were eventually were getting pelted by arrows by a bunch of goblins, and I basically rolled all the goblin attacks at once, and I was like, okay, these two arrows hit you, and the first one does 6 damage, the second one does another 6. And the player goes, okay, the first one knocks me down, and the second one, um, I guess kills me. I was like, no, just take a death save. And the other player kind of was like, well, wouldn't that be then at a disadvantage? And if it did hit, wouldn't it be 2 death saves? I was like, yes, you're right, but we're just going this way for now. And he was like, okay. And I was like, you're technically right. That's exactly what I should be doing. But I got 90 y'all.
Right.
I'm
And
just moving forward.
the fact that he said, okay, that's proper, I mean, while he was definitely correct in how it should have been handled,
Yeah.
you, you're dealing with a lot as a DM, especially with 9 people.
Yeah, I definitely don't suggest DMing your first time for 9 people.
God no.
3?
3, 4 at the max.
Shit, just do it with 2.
Yeah, hell, even 1. I mean, I learned with one other person. Like when
Here,
I
here's
started.
the here's the best first encounter you can have with you and one other person. Have the other person be whatever class they want, and then have them fight 1 goblin, and then have them fight 2 goblins, and then have them fight 5 goblins. Okay,
Yeah.
you decide whatever time you want in there, and then after the 5 goblins, they fight an ancient red dragon.
And
That way, they get the experience of basically playing and how everything works, and then you get the experience of killing a player.
yeah, because that's what's going to happen. By the way, I want to mention the fact that the way you introduced that other dungeon master to becoming a dungeon master was absolutely brilliant because you let them feel the power of the fact that they hold another player's character's life in their hands.
Yeah,
Because
and they were
because
very
them
reluctant too.
them versing a Paraton, they're going to die.
Yeah.
They're going to die. So you've literally just handed this person's first dungeon mastering gig off to them so they can kill a player or kill a character.
And that's the other kind of reason I did is because as much as nice as you want to be to the players, if they're always surviving, it's not fun.
No, if they do dumb things like that, there are consequences. There have to be.
No, it really was. It wasn't like it was dumb. Like it was just honestly she was a victim of the circumstance in that I
No, I
had
mean,
rolled, I had rolled, and there was a random encounter that time, and
yeah,
then
it's not. They didn't feel like they weren't in the proper setting. And mind you, I
yeah,
understand it's a new player. They all make mistakes,
yeah.
but I am never going to wander off into any sort of wilderness area by myself.
Well,
In
he's down the
real,
road.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there are terrible things on those roads, and all it takes is one Paraton showing up, and you're bird food.
Oh, motherfucker.
I mean, that's literally what happened, and it was a poor choice. In reality, if that was real and they were from Icewind Dale, the odds they would have wandered off is probably not. Yeah, it's probably none. But because it's a tabletop role playing game where there are no real life consequences and they're brand new to this thing, they're gonna make bad choices.
Yeah. And so like it was listening for the DM too because she's a very nice person,
Mhm.
and it's like okay, like are you going to be, I'm like, or how cruel are you going to be? Are you going to let the dice play and land as they are? And then later on too, one of the other guys that was more experienced was like, you rolled the die, you are the only person that sees the die, and she's like, what do you mean? I was like, you could have said that attack didn't hit.
Yep.
I was like, if you wanted to, like, you control the situation. I looked at her, I was like, yeah, you could have. You could have honestly said, you rolled a die. The first attack that it did when she was down missed. Okay, so there was a chance that the second attack would have missed. I mean, the second attack like hit, obviously,
Yeah.
but you kind of control that narrative. You have to then decide, like, am I always going to let my players off when they do stupid things, or are they going to suffer the consequences? Now, I'm glad she went with the die, because I had other plans in store for that outcome,
Mhm.
and we couldn't be doing what we're going to be doing now without those plans.
Yep.
So that's why I always usually tend to let the negatives land as they land because I think it creates more opportunity, um, especially with Frostbane kind of being a campaign of desperation.
Yeah.
anyways. To know that like anytime you could just die, and there's just evil stuff out there. you
Yeah.
know,
And Icewind Dale it does not really pull punches. Like
no,
it really doesn't. It gives you the opportunities to get sort of ahead of the curve. But if you make mistakes, if you go to the wrong places, if you say the wrong things, it is a campaign that can absolutely kill your characters off.
yeah. So that's kind of that situation that's there, and that's actually the thing I want to talk about more. Than my mess up that I did um, with the ending in the Al campaign.
All right. So how did you mess up the ending of the Owl campaign?
It's a long discussion.
Well,
Um,
we got time.
we don't actually.
Well, I mean,
It's going to take more than 10 minutes, but
all right.
just know that that's what next week is going to be about. Is how I mess up the end of the Al campaign.
All right.
Um, and I kind of want more time to reflect on it too,
Yeah,
just
I mean,
to
that's
kind of
fair.
like think about it because it only happened like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I have my initial reactions on it, but I want to think about it for a little bit, and I want to mull over it, and I want to see what I can do to design around the problems that I ran into, and that's what I've been kind of thinking about and mulling over. So I want to discuss it. I thought about discussing it now on this one, but I want to wait until next week anyways. Um,
Okay.
but I will say that the Allen campaign is done. Um, they were successful in defeating the Jabberwock. Um, uh, balance was restored to Glide Sky Roost, as you call it.
Glideski Roost.
Yeah, as you would call it.
I can't help it. If I see that word, immediately Glideski runs through my head.
Um, all the players decided to kind of like move on with their lives. The once the town was restored, they brought back the head of the Jabberwocky. They had just basically the skull of it.
Mhm.
The barbarian who was turning into a tentacle monster turned it into a bed. My wife was playing the Tabaxi bard called Little Black Raincloud. So she decided to party for like the next 2 weeks.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Um, the owl that got turned into the high elf, he kind of was with his parents, but kind of like felt out of place, so he decided to leave town and join the other elf that was in the group to kind of go visit their home. And that's when Little Black Raincloud decided to join them. So they kind of went off on their own adventure after um, the campaign ended. Gavarius, the twin brother of Harris, the brewmaster
Aragon.
monk. Yeah. He decided to go back to his temple and train longer, and kind of reflect on everything that happened in Glide Sky Roost. And the one part that I was waiting for, I think I felt like I delivered it correctly. I was kind of weak on it. Um, but Lord Olmuk, the Jabberwock that was imprisoned in the Shadowfell shard that mirrored the Feywild domain that they were in, um, was defeated and killed. However, whenever a Jabberwocky dies, 3D8 years later, another one is born at the same ruins that the previous one died. Now, a juvenile Jabberwock has never been seen, leading most to assume that when another Jabberwock is born, it's born as an adult. It's like already mature, bam, there it is.
Right.
What creates the Jabberwock? What keeps this endless cycle of Jabberwocks always coming back in the ruins?
The next campaign.
No one honestly knows. I couldn't find any. There's no lore in D&D about it. There's no lore anywhere else about it. I mean, Lewis Carroll created the Jabberwock and was just like, "Here's a dragon in a vest.
Yeah.
Ye snick snack and crumble and ragarish and other weird words." And that's all the lore that there is. So like they can kind of create anything they want, but like that's like really got me kind of interested. It's like, what is causing a Jabberwock to always be recreated? Like, liches never die because they're always at the phylactery.
Right.
The Jabberwockies have some kind of thing that's like, always recreates another one. Are they like King Piccolo from Dragon Ball? Where there's like, oh, I'm dying. Bloop, here's an egg. Well, that's next to me. Bloop. And then Piccolo shows up. You didn't get that reference because you don't watch Dragon Ball.
You are correct.
But those who do watch Dragon Ball know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of thought about that too, because they don't reproduce. There's
I mean,
never more than one.
the fact is, you can write that campaign. You could write
Yeah, but
one.
that's
You could write whatever you want for it, and that's awesome because you have something going forward if you want to continue with
oh,
the Glide Sky Roost.
the sequel to Glide Sky Roost has already been formulated. Has nothing to do with the Jabberwock.
Well, make whatever. Okay, the sequel to the sequel then.
Well,
The Return of the Jabberwock.
if I do write a campaign with like how to deal with the Jabberwock and how to stop it from keep reborning itself, I think it's more of a one shot, like a 15th level one shot or like an 18th level one shot.
Yeah.
Um, but the actual sequel to Glide Sky Roost, if I ever get around to doing that, is actually with Talibu, who is the local wizard owl, who's this really tiny snow owl.
Shouldn't it be Talahoo?
Talibu. Yeah, I do have to kind of redo some of their names because they don't have lips, so they wouldn't say boo. Talibu. So Talibu was the local wizard owl, and she, when the players go to the Fomorian, the primordial Fomorians essentially lair, she also makes sure the players try to get a black book for her that basically is imprisoned, or not prison, but is kept inside of their Emerald Palace. And regardless if the players actually bring it back to her or not, they see her with the book at the end of the campaign. And it's essentially, for lack of a better definition of what it actually is, but it's just it's a book of evil. It's a Necronomicon, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And my players are very smart to go, that's an evil book. F no, good on them. And she had to go get it herself. So essentially, the plan that I had, like the sequel story to that, is basically she uses that book to become a lich, and sacrifices the people in the town to basically gain her powers, and they have to go stop the lich Talibu.
Nice. Yeah, that seems like a fun follow up to it if you get around to actually putting that one together.
It's a little different. It doesn't have anything to do with the cycle or anything like that. Nothing to do with the Jabberwocks. It doesn't repeat those steps at all.
Now it's just go hunt down the NPC that we dealt with from years
ago.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it is. Like if I had a long campaign going, that's the next part I would bring them to. Is like, okay, cool. And I pal around for a little bit. All of a sudden, someone just gets ritually sacrificed in a corner, and everyone's like, "What is going on over here?"
Yeah, we're in Icewind Dale again. What the hell?
Where's the Durgar? Damn it. So, but yeah, we'll talk about the final battle. I want to mull over it for about another week or so. Do join us for the start of our new campaign this Saturday. Everyone that listens, because it's gonna be a lot of fun watching a brand new DM who's done some one shots but never a campaign. So, I like his style, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. He actually does voices where I don't. So
yeah, I could really use some work on that myself.
If you want work on that, Taking 20 on YouTube. He's a DM player of Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons. Really highly respected. Does a lot of like top 10 lists, and here's the best advice I can give you as a DM kind of stuff. Like the stuff we kind of want to do.
Yeah, I think I was watching a video of his on Traps.
Yeah.
No, wait, no, this is the Dungeon Coach. But there's a
Taking
lot
20,
of them.
Fantastic guy, really nice, charismatic fella who Does a lot of like D&D guides, and he's currently doing like a couple like videos on doing voices. And I watched the first couple that he did. Really, a lot of great advice on how to do voices. I'm not going to kind of rehash what he has there, but definitely go to his YouTube
Yeah.
channel. Again, it's Taking 20, um, and yeah, give him a watch.
Yeah.
Tell him the
Uh,
Grumpy Dungeon Master sent you. I don't know
yeah.
if that works at all, but I don't know how
Check
social media
check it
works.
out. I definitely will. So, last thing I wanted to discuss briefly before we wrap this thing up.
And go
Uh,
kill zombies.
yeah. Well, I ended up actually getting to run this past weekend. Finally, it's only been 2 months, and I had set up a festival ahead of time for my players. So I had a lot of time to actually go and research and get stuff, and I ended up downloading off of the DM's Guild. It's called Festival Games and Fortunes by Douglas J. Koffler. And it has 10 different little games that people could play at a festival that I ended up walking my players through. They got to do pretty much every one of them. A couple of them were really fun. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but they have two of them that I really like the names of. It was Tame the Dragon and Woodchuck Chuck, which is hilarious to me. But Woodchuck Chuck is literally just skee ball, but it has the rules for skee ball. And yeah, I know, right? The module thing comes with a list of prizes at the end. It's like a percentile to see what you'd win, depending on how well you did at some of the games.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, the Tame the Dragon, there's no prizes, but you can do gambling. They actually have like side gambling and such, which the prizes one's kind of ridiculous because any adventurer, most of these things are like copper pieces or silver to enter. So any real adventurer with any levels could just put in enough money to get every single prize, obviously. So I just limited my players to going through each of them one time. Now with the side betting ones, I kept it to one because I didn't want to sit here and do that all night. I had other stuff planned, but
Yeah.
they were able to go through once and do whatever side betting they wanted to. Tame the Dragon was basically bull riding. So
Okay.
you have a barrel in the middle of the area, and there's four ropes attached to it that sort of runs through pulleys, and somebody gets on top of it, and then the four guys on the ropes start pulling the ropes, and the barrel starts bouncing around, and you have to make different checks to see if you can hold on to it or not.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you're ever looking to run some simple festival stuff, I would highly recommend this one. It was a pay what you want, so I slipped the dude a few bucks for it, and I wasn't disappointed. Like, there's good stuff in here. There's also a couple of them that they actually have a history section for
Yeah.
how Tame the Dragon came to be, how Five Finger Push came to be, like actual. These are pretty good histories on it. I'm not going to go over them, but if you download it, you could read through it.
That's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. Always. Oh, if you ever buy anything off DM's Guild, um, pay what you want is great because it's free, but always give them a buck or two
Yeah.
because they're DM's Guild is all about how many people download and run your modules. Well, the way DM's Guild work is that unless they're making a certain threshold on the sale, which is about a buck, okay, so just give them at least $1. That will count towards their bestseller stuff. So there's a lot of stuff out there like Wild Sheep Chase, which is like easily adamantine or better, but it's pay what you want, and it's nowhere near that
Yeah.
because everyone just downloads for free. Well, just go back and buy it for a buck 10 times and
Yeah.
give them 10 counts as
If you're really limited on funds or something, download it, use it, and when you get a couple bucks, just go back and throw a couple dollars at them. It's not hard, and like I got a few hours worth of, I got at least an hour and a half out of game time out of downloading this. And this is work I didn't have to do. I get to read this. I understand the rules. Very simple, very useful. Definitely worth a few bucks.
cool. Yeah, it sounds good. I'm probably gonna pick it up too because I always need those.
Yeah, there was a couple of them on there. This one was the only one that was, pay what you want. The other one was $5. I don't know which one's better, but because I got to test. I got to read this one and then decide.
Yeah. Well, a little bit like what I do too is like in DM's Guild, there's usually like a preview section. You can actually preview stuff, and
Yeah,
usually like people will preview like all of it. Like here's the whole thing on the preview, but it's not pay what you want, but you can preview the whole thing.
Yep, and then
And then
you get the solid PDF if you
yeah,
want.
for $1.
And we actually get a server up.
No,
Probably not.
you have to be tier 3 sub to the stream, top bit donator, and play through my ice window or my daily ice
Yeah,
devil module.
I think you're just making stuff up now.
No, those are requirements.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, bye everybody.
Yep. Oh yeah. By the way, I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Jay.
And I'm Craig.
I'm southbound and down. All my rolls are crits. It's time for me to hit the bricks.